During the Oprah interview, Meghan shared the severity of her mental health struggles during her time as a senior working royal. Not only that, she also shared the blatant neglect by the firm when she voiced those struggles and asked for help. Now, of course, the naysayers love to neigh, some of them claiming absolute hogwash. They didn't believe that she had any sort of depression, saying, "You married into one of the most well-known institutions, living into a palace. There is no reason for you to be depressed." Some saying, okay, yeah, she's been dragged by the press, but, the British press does that to every member of the firm, so she should just get along with it. Some saying, well, maybe she was depressed, and yeah, she got abused by the press, but Harry, William, and Kate launched a campaign, Heads Together campaign, for mental health. So there's no reason why she wouldn't get help if she really asked for it. Some saying, well, that's nonsense because the firm has provided mental help for William and for Harry after the loss of their mother. Now, for the rest of us who were following in real time, we don't doubt and offered support and understanding for Meghan's mental health struggles. Now, this situation with Meghan and a neglectful response from the palace is nothing new. Before Meghan, Princess Diana had a really hard go and severe mental health struggles within the institution. She too also said that the firm offered no support. But before Princess Diana, there was Princess Margaret. Now, for those of you who don't know, Princess Margaret is the younger sister of Queen Elizabeth. And much like Harry, Margaret was labeled the cheeky younger sibling, which she seemed to have an issue with. Much like Harry, the older sibling was labeled the goody-goody, Queen Elizabeth, Prince William. The younger sibling was labeled as the bad one, the cheeky one, the rambunctious one. Into the relationships and tidbits of the British royal family dynamics, I've noticed that there's a lot of similarities between generations past and present. And sadly enough, I feel like the lack of care, the lack of trying to change and improve things from the firm will mean that future generations would still fall prey to the traps that were around for Princess Margaret and now for Harry and William, and will be around for the future generations of Cambridge children, because we know Harry and Meghan have taken their children out of that environment. So at least they'll be able to have a more normal semblance of a childhood than the Cambridge kids do. I mean, William and Kate had said that they wanted their children to have a normal childhood, but as we've seen in the past couple of months, with each time, more and more, the Cambridge children have been trotted out for PR. But back to Princess Margaret, who had a very tragic and sad life. Margaret was expected to give up the love of her life, which she did, and that decision just snowballed into very sad and sordid love affairs and marriages, which ended up in divorce. Very, very sad. In the end, she suffered mental health struggles and physical struggles as well. Now, her mental health decline was so severe that her friends were rumored to have bugged her room. One of her friends stated that Princess Margaret had called her and told her that she was going to throw herself out the window. And that friend then called Queen Elizabeth, who then responded with, "Carry on with your party. Her bedroom is on the ground floor." Within that institution, mental health struggles, divorce, or showing any signs of weakness seem to be seen and responded to with contempt. There is no room for vulnerability, which is unhealthy. But okay, if that's the way they approach things, that's fine. But the problem I have with it is that the palace, specifically Kensington Palace, within the past couple of years, have tried to present itself as a part of the royal system that truly cares about mental health struggles. A couple months ago, Kate even went as far as to say that she cares about the mental health struggles of pregnant women, which she was bashed for on social media and by some in the press, who quickly pointed out that she offered no help to a pregnant Meghan who was being bashed on a daily basis. So there's that. But the way that the British press has tried to say that Meghan's experiences within the firm is just inaccurate. It never happened. And if it did happen, quote unquote, if it did, she's lying. They offered support. Why wouldn't they offer support? It's right there. But the experiences of Princess Margaret very much aligns with the experiences of Meghan and Princess Diana. A sort of neglect and contempt for any woman in there who expresses a need for help, who shows weakness. The author of the best-selling biography, Diana, Her True Story, shared these disturbing details about the Queen's supposed failure to acknowledge the depression of her younger sister. Margaret had reportedly struggled with psychiatric illness throughout her life, suffering a nervous breakdown in 1974 following the collapse of her marriage to Lord Snowdon. However, there was zero tolerance for such issues within the royal family, with mental illness ousted as a taboo subject never to be discussed. Again, there's so many things that Meghan are bashed for and called a liar, but just a quick Google search into the history books of the firm, and you see that a lot of things that she's gone through or has discussed is present, has been talked about, has been experienced by many within the firm. I mean, even Fergie, when she did her Oprah interview, talked about how cutthroat and hard it is within the firm, and how there's just very little support. You deal with it. You suck it up and deal with it. Don't complain. Don't ask for help. Put a smile on your face. Look pretty and just do the work. Well, work, quote unquote work. Now, after Princess Margaret and before Meghan, there was Princess Diana, who also shared her bout of depression, postpartum depression to be exact, after the birth of Prince William. Now, when asked how the royal family reacted to her postnatal depression, Diana said, "Well, maybe I was the first person ever in this family who ever had depression or was ever openly tearful, and obviously that was daunting, because if you've never seen it before, how do you support it?" She added that people stuck a wonderful new label on her for the benefit of calling her unstable. And we've seen this narrative continue to play out to this day. 2 decades after her death, Prince William is on camera saying that she was paranoid. And just seeing the things that she's gone through in that institution, I don't doubt that she was a bit paranoid. I would be paranoid too. That's a lot to handle. All by yourself, without any support. Not from her family, not from her spouse, not from the firm. Couple that with being bashed in the press and being a very polarizing figure of her time, I cannot begin to imagine how awful that feels. But it's just so sad that even to this day, they've stuck this label on her and continue to perpetuate these really false and horrible narratives. Now, while there are many within the royal circles who continue to have an issue with Meghan sharing her lived experiences within the firm and openly exposing the lack of compassion and blatant neglect, there are many who found her story inspiring, aspirational, and who appreciate that she is so openly sharing such personal and intimate struggles, which I can imagine is not easy, especially when she knows that there's a lot of people out there that will pick it apart and are determined to find fault with everything she does and says. But regardless, she shared it. And there is an interesting article that I read a while back, and I'm gonna add it in here, but it basically talked about depression and toxic stressors coupled with racism. And as we know, Meghan experienced a heady combination of anti-Americanism, racism, misogyny, classism. It's just a very toxic concoction of the very worst of humanity. But nonetheless, the article said that Markle made the difficult confession that she experiences suicidal thoughts while pregnant with her son. And while Markle discussed feelings of hopelessness and social isolation and a lack of support as some of the factors that contributed to her decline in mental health, it was her understanding of racism as a toxic stressor. While I'm saddened by Markle's struggle, I'm also heartened by her courage to share her story. As one of the most famous women in the world, she has highlighted many of the risk factors for prenatal depression. It is my hope that her transparency about her mental health will not only encourage other women of color to identify and eliminate toxic stressors from their lives as they are able, but also raises awareness about the heightened vulnerability of the pregnancy and postpartum period. There's so many things within the royal family that deeper you dig that you realize there's a lot of patterns and a lot of things that Meghan and Harry have gone through aren't new to that family, to that environment. And the lack of accountability and the disinterest in really making true changes within that structure means that the future generations of young ones within that institution are very likely to go through those same struggles. Now, Harry and Meghan thankfully have removed Archie and Lily from that environment, so they'll be more likely to have a normal childhood, or as normal as children belonging to public figures can possibly have. But I don't doubt that the environment within the sunny Montecito, California is way less toxic and stressful as the environment would have been had they stayed within the institution. Already we've seen Louis, who is already labeled as the younger, cheeky troublemaker, much like Harry, much like Princess Margaret. We see body language experts already dissecting Princess Charlotte, which is creepy, and I don't know why the people within that institution think it's okay to put that out there in the media. There's been no pushback about it, but that's the British press for you. And already George is seen as the stoic future king-to-be that is not going to be labeled as putting a wrong foot out of line, much like William. The press and the palace has gone through a lot of trouble to make sure that William's reputation is secure. It's safe. They've thrown Harry to the wolves to distract from William. And I don't doubt that they're going to do that to the Cambridge kids as well, which is really unfortunate. Patterns of neglect for mental health, patterns of labeling for different members within the family are just supposed to stay the course and do it with a smile on their face. So I applaud Harry and Meghan for not only stepping out of that environment, but having the guts to talk about it openly. And, it's sometimes still disheartening to see the level of vitriol that's thrown their way, but they're doing it together. Much like the song that was sung in their wedding, Stand By Me. And boy, has that been tested, You see them standing by each other. But I don't doubt that in time, narratives will change. And when Queen Elizabeth is no longer with us, I feel like there's going to be a very different approach when it comes to the way the relationship of the palace and the press, or the UK press, is currently at. I predict that it's going to change, and it's going to be very messy. We already see Charles. A lot of Charles's underhanded money deeds have been exposed one after the other within recent months. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, hit that notification bell.